Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
This is 476 Barbary, right?
Yeah, I'm renting this place.
No, I booked it a month ago.
Are you sure you have the right place?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
Why don't you come inside and we'll call these idiots. Why don't you just crash here?
Oh, no.
I don't know if you got a great look at this neighborhood, but I don't think you should be out there by yourself. It's dry and there's a lock on the door. By the way, I'm Keith.
Tess.
You take the bedroom and I'll sleep out here on the couch.
God. Keith?
This process might seem overwhelming, but with a little practice, it can soon become a pleasurable experience. This is perfectly natural.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. How are you doing, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, Airbnbers. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Mike. How the hell you doing?
Doing well. We're getting the first signs up here that it might be transitioning to that mid month, half month between summer and fall. So hopefully we're done with 100 degrees, but you never know up here. So I this is the time of year where I see like people from like different parts of the country, especially, I mean, outside the country too, but especially other regions, people talking about like putting up Halloween decorations, all that stuff, and football starting, and I'm like, man, I'm festive too, but it's hard to even think about that stuff when it's 105. All right. Well, joining us as always, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don? How is it going?
Yeah, doing good. Always happy to be here.
All right. Well, today we are talking about a theatrical release that just came out this past Friday. This one kind of, I don't think there was like a ton going on with it ahead of time. The trailer kind of dropped a couple months ago, and it looked pretty intriguing for those of us that still watch trailers. I didn't know much about it before that, and probably would have seen it anyway, just because it's in the theater. But it definitely did look interesting, and it is titled Barbarian. So from IMDb. Yeah, there it goes. A woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she has rented is not what it seems. Okay, that's pretty good. Easy synopsis. That doesn't give away much. So general thoughts are first up. That's how we do it. And Venom, you're pretty much always first. So give us your general thoughts on Barbarian.
Barbarian. This is an interesting movie for me because going into it, I was noticing that it was getting a lot of positive, word of mouth and stuff like that from our community, the podcasting community, things like that. But I still try to not let that stuff affect me when I go in. Overall, I had a pretty good time with Barbarian. I think it's a decent story. We have a lot of people talking about how it's a very original story, and I think what they mean is that it's an original IP. It's not based on anything. It's not an homage, a remake, a requel, whatever you want to go with. But as far as original story, I mean, we've seen this type of story before. I could name a couple of examples, but since we're still in our kind of spoiler-free section, I'm gonna hold on to that until later. But I still had a pretty good time with the movie. I thought the kills were pretty decent, what we could see of them. This movie is very dark, very, very dark. There are scenes where, especially when kills occur in these dark scenes, it's like the sound effects really help, the visceral experience of it all. But it is dark, and, sometimes they'll use fancy camera angles where you don't actually see, the actual impact or, point of damage or whatever you want to go with. But you're still like behind the character or at an angle, so I mean you're still getting the most you can for an R-rated theatrical release. My problem with this movie, though, is a problem that I have with a lot of movies, and it's kind of becoming one of my number one pet peeves lately, and that's just stupid characters in horror movies making stupid decisions. And unfortunately, this movie is filled with that. Now, I did find myself having enough of a good time with the film. Once we get to the third act and the action really ramps up, you tend to forget and forgive maybe even some of the silly decisions that were made early on. But it's still, you guys know that's a major pet peeve for me. I can't forgive that stuff. I am going to say that this film is good enough that if you can suspend disbelief and you can just, accept the fact that there are stupid people making stupid decisions in this film, I think you're going to have a really good time with it. Hell, it might even turn into one of your favorites of the year. For me, it's a good story. Like the story is my favorite part of it. I actually love this story. I love the flashback scene. It's always great to see Richard Brake. I know some people are kind of, make the accusation that he plays the same character in every movie, that he's one note, but you know what? I really like that one note, so I still accept it. So, and actually he's more subdued in this movie. He's not like the yelling, banshee psychopath that he is in a lot of his movies. So it is slightly different, but he's still doing things that Richard Brake characters do. So, it's not exactly a stretch for him, but I still did enjoy the movie. Like I said, I would give an above average rating to this. If it weren't for the characters making very questionable decisions, I could see this being a favorite of the year. But just ultimately, because I was so frustrated with that first watch, I did get a chance to watch it a second time. And I will say the second watch helped improve my overall rating of the film, because like I said, once you kind of accept that a film is filled with stupid people, then you kind of enjoy the ride a little bit more. So like I said, I think this is a quality film. It's just a matter of how much that horror trope of dumb people doing dumb things bothers you. And if it doesn't bother you that much, I think you're really going to dig this film. That's probably it for me for general thoughts.
All right, I'll pass it over to Don. What are your general thoughts on Barbarian?
I don't have much else to add other than what Venom said. I think he and I are pretty much right on with this one. I like where it goes. I like where all of these various intermingling storylines come from, because I think it sets up three very kind of quality storylines here, and you kind of get a little and you get more invested in this than you think you would, because I'm not usually a fan of these kinds of films. I like the setting. I like the way that the house is treated. I like the atmosphere it sets up. I like everything that it plays out. But oh my God, talk about just keeping the film going for the sake of stupidity. Jeez. I mean, once we get the reveal of the basement and everything that goes on down there, it's like, okay, rainstorm or not, get the fuck out of there.
Thank you.
I mean, Jesus Christ, people. I mean, sense of self-preservation. And I mean, I can't speak for myself, but I would probably imagine that my first thought would be cut the gas cord, light the fridge, and, not the fridge, the stove, and just say to hell with it and see if that stirs any kind of, stirs something. I mean, I don't want to get too much spoilers, because I mean, this is one that I know a lot of people are saying you need to go in as blind as possible, and I think that actually is true. Mm-hmm. I think this is one that you definitely need to go in knowing very little, because there's so much going on. I think it's probably a little too convoluted for its own good. I think this could have been streamlined a little bit better and probably have eliminated some stupidity, but Yeah, overall, I like it. I don't really consider it one of the year's bests, but I can say this. Considering the deluge of crap we've had to watch over the last few weeks, this is miles better by comparison, and I think that kind of enhanced my personal enjoyment of it a little bit more. But overall, yeah, this one really could have been streamlined, eliminated maybe one or two extraneous flaws, and just kept it a little simpler, and probably wouldn't have had the characters reacting so stupidly to these decisions. Because there's like 5 or 6 points in the film where it's just like, haul ass. There's like no other explanation for staying in that house. And I mean, yeah, we're gonna get into spoilers here, but yeah, overall, it's a fun time. If you can get over stupidity, you'll probably have a higher rating on it. But at the very least, go in knowing as little as possible. But yeah, fun time overall.
Okay. As far as I go, I probably liked it a little more than you guys, but I do agree with some of the criticism about stupid decisions. I actually was kind of putting that, like, I was willing to like overlook that, but the two things I think people might have an issue is, one, there's an interaction between our main female actress or character in this and a couple of cops at a certain point that I just thought was
one of the most frustrating scenes in this movie.
Yeah, and I don't understand, like, it's hard to get into it too much, but it was just frustrating and annoying how that scene played out. And then the other thing is, I do think the movie takes a big tonal change once a certain character is introduced, and I don't want to say necessarily the movie is less good because of it, because I did enjoy what we get from that point on, and I did like laugh, and I think I have to assume that they wanted to they were purposely bringing this tonal change, because there's no way everything with that character to me can be seen any other way than like almost kind of interjecting like comedy, maybe as to like break the tension or to like reset you up for more to come later in the movie. It's just that I would say it's kind of like just odd the way it's specifically structured. It's almost like a traditional 3-act movie in a way. It's kind of like
it's more like 3 movies.
Yeah, sort of. It's like, I think like Don kind of put it the correct way. It's almost like 3 intertwining stories. 3 characters experience the same thing, which each could have almost been their own movie in a way. And they intertwine around the house and what's going on with it for different reasons. But all that said, me saying that makes me think, or might make people think I'm down on it. But actually, I did have a lot of fun with it. Where it goes and what we end up with, and the third act I thought was really fun, and I thought the ending was satisfying. But I did think there was a few stumbles on the way to get there that we can get into during the spoilers. But I would say, for the people that are on the fence these days about trailers, I will say the trailer doesn't really give away much at all. The trailer kind of sets you up for what the first act is giving to you, but it goes many places that the trailer never alludes to, which I think is a good job. Like, I'll always praise a trailer when I feel like it does enough to get people interested, but it doesn't really tip its hat on what's to come, and I think it did a good job in this case. So yeah, just to wrap up my general thoughts, I did have fun with this, and we'll have to break it down in spoilers to see what the issues that we all had with it were. So back to you, Venom.
One thing I forgot to mention during my general thoughts, and I guess I kind of did mention it with some of the stupid characters. In my opinion, and I know this is only my opinion, there was only one likable character in this whole fucking movie for me. I know other people are gonna, watch the movie and be like, oh no, there were more than one. But just the kind of horror movie viewer that I am, there's only one likable character in this movie, and god damn it, it's the first character that's dispatched from the movie. And as soon as that happened, I'm like, oh, please don't let this movie go in a weird direction, because we just lost my favorite character. And then it kind of does, but not necessarily in the bad way. Like there is a major tonal shift between the first and second act in this film, and when I say major, I fucking mean major. Like literally, you're in the middle of a dank, dark, bloody horror set piece, and then bam, out of nowhere, you're in fucking Malibu, driving on the PCH, in a convertible with Justin Long, and it's such a tonal shift. It's almost jarring. Almost. I would say for some people it's going to be jarring, because then we spend most of the second act with Justin Long's character AJ, and the whole time you're like, well, wait a minute, what about the house? What's going on? And then finally, once after about 15-20 minutes of this AJ character, we finally find out his connection to the house. And yeah, it makes sense, but I just feel like the filmmakers could have found a better way to kind of introduce that plot point, because I was just confused for like 10-15 minutes. Like, what the hell am I watching? Like, I thought it was just a cold open at first. I'm like, oh, was that a cold open and this is our main character? Like, it leaves you scratching.
That's
your
what
head
I
a little
thought.
bit.
That's what I was questioning too. I was
Okay,
like,
good. It's not just me. I was
like,
bring
that was
up.
one hell of a setup for the movie.
Exactly.
I was gonna say. I mean, I didn't want to bring that up in the spoilers, but yeah, I was kind of thinking, I was like, why the hell are we spending all this time? I mean, I was gonna bring it up, but yeah, good. I didn't know if that was gonna be a spoiler or not, but
It's kind of a tonal spoiler, but I'm not giving away plot points quite yet. But yeah, so fully, if you haven't watched the movie yet and you're just kind of getting our general thoughts before you make the decision to go, I would say I would recommend it still, even though I had a problem with some of the storytelling, some of the character decisions, some of the characters in general. As Mike mentioned, there's a couple of police officers here that are just fucking insipid. It just doesn't make sense to me, the decisions that they make, even though they're in fucking Detroit, the murder capital of the country. It still doesn't make any fucking sense.
Not
The
not
decision
to
that the
mention,
cops
like,
make.
yeah, and not to mention, and we'll get into it in the spoilers, but the circumstances surrounding that specific scene and what's going on, I have a hard time that thinking or believing that that's how they're gonna react in that situation.
Yeah,
And
it just seems so fake.
yeah, and I can once we get into spoilers, I'll give specific reasons why I was like, just look to see, we'll get into it because I can't really say more.
It is infuriating though. I know what you mean. I was like that, the first time in the theater. I watched this on Saturday morning the first time, and like I said, walked out of the theater like, okay, that was a pretty good movie. I really enjoyed the first and third act. I think those are the high points of the film. But then sandwiched in the second act is the flashback scene where we kind of find out more of the history of that house. And I love that scene. I think that scene is so well made because it's not violent, it's not gory. It gives us all it gives you is the breadcrumbs that you need to figure out what has been happening in this house. And that's all I wanted from that flashback scene, and it was perfect. Like, yeah, the flashback scene could have gotten way more violent. It could have shown a lot more of what happened in that house in the past, but the fact that they were a little bit more subtle with it, just to kind of show us, okay, here's this character who obviously used to live in the house, because they show, literally we see the house in present day, and then instantly it goes to, sometime in the past. By the way, I do have some nitpicks with that scene, which I can talk about here. Do you gentlemen have any guesses as to what year roundabout that scene was, the flashback scene? Like, I think I know what the filmmakers were going for, but they kind of fucked up.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you mean.
Yeah. So when the flashback scene starts, it very much looks like the 70s. It almost looks like the 50s and 60s, because all the houses in the neighborhood are all pristine. They're all ultra colorful. It definitely looks like a post-World War II America. Everybody's doing well, living in houses, blah, blah, blah. But then things happen Also, all the cars in it are 70s cars. When I watched the second time, I checked. Every single car in that scene is from the 70s. There are no 80s vehicles in that scene, right?
Yeah, they
So
look
it
like the big
seems like they're going for a
70s
70s
sedans.
aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
He has a VCR on his TV. Now, I will say VCRs were invented in 1979, or should I say not invented? They were invented in 71, but they were released to the public in 79. The problem is the original VCRs that came out back in 79 were top loading VCRs, as in a tray would pop out from the top of the unit. You would stick the tape in and then push the tray back in. Front loading VCRs didn't come out until 1982. And Richard Brake's character has a front loading VCR in this scene, yet everything screams 70s. Now, mind you, this is Detroit, and maybe the filmmakers are trying to make the point that Detroit is behind every other city in the country. I don't know, but it just, mind you, this is stuff that nobody would notice except someone who was there in the 70s. Like most people wouldn't even, because the scene was so dark. There's a scene in the flashback where we see Richard Brake's character going and getting supplies from like a pharmacy or a hardware store or whatever you want to go with, and he picks up a VHS tape. And I'm like, wait a minute, like that's the first thing that struck me as odd. He's buying a video cassette tape in a pharmacy or like I said, hardware store, local convenience store, whatever you want to go with. And I'm like, no, that did not happen in the 70s. You're talking mid 80s before you would see like VHS tapes sold in places that weren't specifically video stores. And so that was the first like question mark, like, wait a minute, what is going on? What year is this? And then when we get back to the house, that's when I'm staring at the TV. And like I said, the scene is so dark that most people aren't going to notice. But I concentrated on his TV and I look on top of it, and there it is, a front loading VCR. So I know it's a nitpick, folks. It's not going to affect the movie in any way, shape, or form for anyone. But like I said, the older I get, the more I notice these errors. And, for those who don't know, I've been in quality assurance, computer software quality assurance for over 24 years at this point. So my job is to point out mistakes. So that's why I do it so much on the podcast. So please don't hate me. It's just kind of part of my DNA at this point. But yeah, aside from all the little mistakes and the character decisions and everything else, overall, I do recommend the movie. It's a fun movie. I think I kind of lie in the same place as I did with Malignant from last year. Another movie that I found to be fun, that I enjoyed more on the second watch than I did on the first watch, because again of the crazy tonal shift that you get about halfway through Malignant. This movie, the tonal shift isn't quite that bad, but the fact that you're in this house in Detroit and then suddenly you're on the coast in Malibu, it's a little jarring, for some viewers. Obviously, the three of us kind of agree on that statement, so we all noticed it, and so I'm sure others are going to notice it too. And I did hear another reviewer online also mention it, so yeah, it's definitely there. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really talked much about the filmmaking as far as like cinematography, because ultimately it's Detroit, Michigan, and we all know what fucking Detroit, Michigan looks like. It's going to be hard to get nice cinematography in a rundown neighborhood. Like, I don't know.
I did like the contrast though of like the neighborhood, like in the flashback, how like the
Yes.
whole neighborhood's nice, and then you fast forward to modern times, it's like the one it's slowly like a changing neighborhood. I mean, I thought that was a cool aspect.
And then the other question is too, how is that house still there? Like, I understand that. I guess we'll get into it in the spoiler section, because there's little bits of information behind that I guess you can defend why that house is still there, but it's literally the only functional house in this neighborhood, and I'm not exaggerating, folks. Every house is boarded up, torn down, windows busted, doors hanging on the hinges. Just, it literally looks like a ghost town. It's just a shithole, except for this one house in the middle of the neighborhood with a nice lawn that's all looking all nice. And I'm like, what the fuck is who is keeping up this house? Blah, blah, blah. Like, this house must be literally worthless because of the neighborhood it's in. Like, you couldn't sell that house for $500, I don't think. I mean, who would buy it, for fuck's sake? So yeah, weird little issues here and there. But as far as, like I said, some of the scenes that are in the dark might be a little bit too dark for viewers. Obviously, in a movie theater, it's optimal. At home, if you've got lights on while you're watching it, I got a feeling that some people might not catch every single thing that we're seeing down in the catacombs of the house, if you will. So go into it with that, with that little bit of warning. But overall, I would still say this needs to be watched. This is still a pretty good movie. I mean, this is only our director here, Zach Krager. This is a second time feature for him. Most people would know him as a director from the Whitest Kids You Know, if you remember that comedy sketch show from like the late 90s, I think. I believe it was out of Canada. He directed a bunch of episodes from one of the seasons of that series. So that would probably be his biggest claim to fame. He also directed a movie called Miss March that I vaguely remember. I know I saw it, but I remember so little about it. I do remember thinking it was an okay movie for what it was, but with this film, yeah, now this director's on my radar, and now I'm really looking forward to what he can do. And of course, Bill Skarsgård, my friends. It's always great to see Bill Skarsgård. Bill Skarsgård is one of those weird guys that to certain women, he's like a really attractive, hunky dude, but then to other women, he's an absolute creeper with dead eyes. So it just depends on what kind of girl you are as far as how you look at Bill Skarsgård. I guess not all the Skarsgårds, because I guess one of them is like just traditional handsome, blah blah blah. I forget which one. I don't care that much, but yeah, great to see Bill Skarsgård. I mean, we get Kate Bosworth for like one scene, which is weird. Kind of odd that she would just sign on to this just to do the one scene, but there you go. There she is. Not really too many other big names. Like I said, Skarsgård, Justin Long, Richard Brake. Those are going to be the biggest names that we get in here. And then, like I said, the quickie appearance from Kate Bosworth. But yeah, like I said, overall, I say watch it. Give it your $20 or whatever movies cost in your neighborhood now. Hopefully you've got, a rewards program like Mike and I, so you can go and see as many movies as you like. But yeah, this is still worth one to go check out in the theaters. I got to see this in Dolby IMAX, and I had an absolute blast with it.
This was an IMAX?
I don't know.
Wow.
It wasn't the true IMAX, the ridiculous.
Oh, okay.
It was the Limax, as Jeremy from 22 Shots calls it. Limax.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it was the basic, like we out here, we call it the Valley IMAX, because all the theaters in the Valley that claim to have IMAX, it's not the true IMAX. We would have to go to Universal Studios to get to like a true IMAX theater, but that's a story for another time. But the point is, I did get to see this in a Dolby theater with an IMAX screen, and I had a blast with it. Other than the scenes where I was just seething because of some of the character decisions, once I kind of got past those, I did have a really good time with the movie, and I think most people will as well. So, gentlemen, anything else we want to say before we jump into the spoiler section?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, then. Our movie opens up with a young woman named Tess, played by the beautiful Georgina Campbell. Our last episode was The Invitation, right? Another beautiful colored woman in Emmanuel. I forget her last name. Sorry, but Missandei from Game of Thrones. But anyway, we see Tess. She arrives at a house. Now, she arrives at night, so we don't see the neighborhood. All we see is the house, because it's the only house with lights on. She doesn't understand why when she first gets there. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But when she gets to the house, there's already someone there. The key is not in the key box, in the drop box where it was supposed to be. She's knocking. She's calling the agent that, the Airbnb agent that made the reservation for her. She's unable to get a hold of her. Finally, after knocking, and by the way, it's raining really hard at this point. So she decides to just go back into her car and try to wait. And then the lights come on inside the house. And of course, she's wondering what's going on. Are the owners still here? She knocks on the door, and our friend Bill Skarsgård answers. He is Keith in this film. And when he answers the door, basically he says, well, I've rented this house for the day. Home Away, I think, was the app that he used, whereas Tess used Airbnb. So apparently the house was double booked. Since Skarsgård got there first, he felt bad for her because it's raining. They're in a shit neighborhood. She's not from Detroit. Everything else. So, and she did call a bunch of hotels and unfortunately wasn't able to get a room in the area because of some conventions that were going on. So, they work out an agreement. They end up talking a little bit. They get friendly, and they end up just making the agreement that they're going to stay there. Now, the reason I say that Bill Skarsgård's Keith is the only likable character in this movie is this conversation that he ends up having with this girl, because, obviously this is a young woman and, tall ass Bill Skarsgård in the house with her. So she's obviously, uneasy the whole time. And he offers her a glass of tea, a cup of tea, hot tea that he had just made. She doesn't take a sip of it. She just looks at it and walks away from it. They make the agreement to give her the bedroom while Keith will sleep on the couch for the night. They make the agreement that they're both going to call the people, their agents who made the reservation, and they're both going to get a refund. So they kind of have the joke of, oh, it's a free night stay. Screw it. Tess ends up going to take a shower. When she comes out of the shower, Keith is sitting at the dinner table with an unopened bottle of wine. And then he goes into this whole diatribe about how he totally understands that why she didn't drink the tea, because she didn't see him make it. And I probably wouldn't drink the tea either. He talks about, I didn't open the bottle of wine because I wanted to open it in front of you, so you didn't think that, there's anything shady going on, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, and Tess is still very standoffish at this point, still kind of guarded. Eventually, she does kind of relent and realize that, Keith is no threat to her whatsoever. They end up going ahead and popping the bottle of wine. They finish off the bottle, and they end up just calling it a night. Like, there's no romantic, uncomfortable scenes or anything silly like that. They literally just very friendly, have a good night. We'll deal with this in the morning. Adios. So Tess ends up going to bed. And during that evening, she hears her bedroom door open. Like I said, she's in the bedroom. Keith is out on the couch. She hears the bedroom door open, but when she looks up, there's no one there. The door is open, but nobody's there. She walks out into the living room. Keith is out in the living room having a nightmare. He's asleep, but he's very obviously having some kind of nightmare or uncomfortable dream. She goes out and wakes him up, but she does it in a way that absolutely terrifies him, because he basically comes out of a dead sleep, and she's standing there, about to grab his arm. So he freaks out. He starts accusing her of, what the fuck are you doing? And then that's when the kind of the back and forth goes, where she's like, did you open my bedroom door? And he's like, of course I didn't, blah, blah, blah. They end up not, continuing the conversation. She goes back to the bedroom, locks the bedroom door behind her this time, goes to sleep, and wakes up the next morning. The door is still closed and locked. Everything seems good. Keith has already left for the morning. Oh, by the way, Tess is here for a job interview with a documentary company or a documentary films company in the Detroit area, working with independent artists. So that's why she's here. That's why she's renting the Airbnb. So like I said, when she wakes up in the morning, Keith is already gone. He leaves her a note saying, sorry, I had to get an early start. We'll talk later when we both get back here. Tess goes ahead and just goes to her job interview. It seems like it's a successful job interview. At the end of the interview, the woman basically says, oh, yeah, we'll call you tomorrow and get everything set up. So it seems like she got the job. She's happy. She's in a good mood. In passing, she tells the interviewer where she's staying, and you can kind of see the woman's face just kind of go white and just emotionless. She's like, really? You're in that neighborhood? Are you sure you want to be out there? Now, mind you, she's only seen the neighborhood at night at this point. She hasn't actually seen it during the day. When she gets back from the interview, that's when she's finally seeing the neighborhood for the first time. And that's when we, as the audience, are also seeing the neighborhood for the first time. And that's when we see that all these houses are condemned. They're boarded up. Grass is 6 feet tall in most of the yards, windows broken, cars with no wheels or rims, in the front yards, basically just a ghost town. Except, like I said, for this one house she pulled, I mean, it's literally a diamond in the rough. It's this one little house that I wouldn't go so far as to call it a beautiful house, but at least it's somewhat kept up. The interior looks decent, the bedroom looks nice, the bathroom looks nice, blah, blah, blah. But she realizes that, oh shit, I'm basically in a slum right now and I'm here for 2 more days. And, at that moment, when she's having that thought, we see a homeless person start running towards her, just going, lady, hey, lady. Doesn't seem like he's being aggressive, but again, this is a young, petite woman in a Detroit neighborhood that she's not comfortable with. So as soon as she sees the homeless guy, she basically runs into the house, locks the door behind her, and she tries to call the police. Unfortunately, this is Detroit, where pretty much every unit in Detroit is always busy at all times of the day or night. So the dispatcher lets her know, no, we're not sending anybody out there just for that. If he was still there trying to get into the house, then we would send someone. But if he's gone, and obviously Tess inside a locked house can't tell if he's gone. He could be out there just biding his time for all she knows. But the cops, obviously, the dispatcher's not being cooperative and just says, if he comes back, just call us again, which, isn't really any kind of satisfaction at all. And then at this point, Tess is in the house by herself, and the basement door opens by itself. It just opens up, and obviously, being the curious lady that she is, she decides to open the door, and it leads into a basement. There's a set of stairs that go down into like a basement. She goes down there and she sees that there's just a bunch of discarded items, old radios, old mirrors, some furniture, shit like that. She's perusing some of the shelves that have like old paint cans and shit like that on there. And she notices a rope going through a hole through the wall, into a hole through the wall that's adjacent to that part of the basement. Obviously, as any normal person, I wouldn't call this one a stupid decision because I'd probably do the same shit myself. But yeah, she basically pulls on the rope, because it's very obviously some kind of pulley system because of the way it's set up, the way they put a knot at the end so that the rope doesn't completely go through the hole, blah, blah, blah. She pulls on the rope and we open a corridor. We see like a corridor, and at the end of the corridor, there's another room. At this point, unfortunately, Tess realizes that she's locked in the basement. She basically goes upstairs to try to get her phone or a flashlight of some kind, realizes that the door closed and locked behind her. So she is now stuck in the basement. She can't get out the window, blah, blah, blah. And then, like I said, she finds the rope. She ends up setting up a mirror so that it reflects light from the lamp that's in the basement down into this hall, just enough so that she can see. Because she notices that at the end of the hall, there's a closed room. She sees a door and a small room at the end of the hall. So she decides to go investigate. And my friends, this is where I start to call this character an idiot. Because at this point, I am running out of this fucking house. And it's not even anything all that bad, but it's just the implication of what it is. When she opens the door, we see a small empty room. Empty except for a single bed, which is incredibly dirty. A single bucket, which is incredibly dirty, a video camera on a tripod, like on a stand, and then we see a single bloody handprint on the wall. Now, my friends, when you see something like that hidden in someone's basement, do we really have to guess what happened in that room? I mean, yeah, there might be multiple things that happened in there, but ultimately they're all terrible. And as soon as she sees this, I'm thinking, okay, she's gone. She's going to get the fuck out of here. Homeless guy outside, be damned. She's going to run out to her truck and get the fuck out of here. No, she fucking decides to start investigating the area. She notices that there's yet a second door at the end of the hall. It's like a hidden door. There's no doorknob. It doesn't very obviously look like a door until you bump into it and you hear it shaking. She opens the door, and my friends, we see a stairway that looks like it's a fucking stairway to hell. And yet, luckily, she doesn't go down those stairs. She is smart enough to be like, nah, fuck this. And luckily, at that exact moment, Keith shows up at the house. He tries to get in, but obviously the key isn't in the Dropbox because Tess took it. She's in the house. she took the key to get in the house. So the only key that's in that Dropbox is with Tess. Keith can't get in. Luckily, Tess does hear that Keith is outside, and she kind of motions to him through the basement window that, I'm stuck down here, the door locked behind me, I can't get out. They eventually get the window open, the basement window. They're able to, between the two of them, they're able to pry it open just enough so that she could slide the key over to Keith. Keith then opens the door and joins Tess down in the basement. Now, at this point, I started to think that Tess might be a little smart, because she literally, as soon as she's let out of the basement by Keith, she runs into her bedroom, starts packing all her bags, and literally just says to Keith, dude, we got to get out of here. We got to fucking get out of here right now. She doesn't try to explain anything to him, which is exactly what I would do too. Just get the fuck out. Eventually, she does tell him what she saw down there, but I don't know if it's that he doesn't believe her, or that he just has to see it with his own eyes before he can make his own judgment call. So he tells her, please don't leave. Stay up here just in case I get locked in the basement as well. And he goes down there. He ends up finding the room, the room with the bed, the bucket, and the camera. And he does yell back up to the stairs, that he found the room. But then a few seconds later, Tess tries to yell back at him to, hey, Keith, get out of there. Let's go. No answer. No answer from Keith whatsoever. Finally, she, like an absolute idiot, and I'm sorry, I understand that she's being compassionate, but she just fucking met this guy last night. They're not romantic. They're not anything. Have a fucking sense of self-preservation. Like Don mentioned earlier, no one in this goddamn movie has a sense of self-preservation, and it bugs the shit out of me. She ends up going back down to the basement. The door almost closes on her, but this time she is able to stop it. She props up a chair in front of the door to make sure that it doesn't close accidentally. She walks down there, and she walks into that secret little bedroom, and Keith isn't there. He's nowhere to be found. She's yelling for him, and he doesn't know, he's not answering. Finally, she hears a scream from Keith coming from the stairway to hell that I previously mentioned, and he's screaming like he's in pain, and he's screaming for help. It's very, very low, so it sounds like he's really, really far away. It sounds like that staircase just goes down forever. And that's when she has her little moral dilemma where she's like, should I just fucking leave or should I go help him? And of course, she makes the wrong decision and walks down those fucking stairs to try to help this guy. She does end up finding him in what is a labyrinth of tunnels underneath the house with various little rooms here and there. She ends up finding a room that looks like it's currently being lived in. In fact, there's a TV that's on in the little room, and what's playing on the screen, it's a goddamn nursing video, breastfeeding, like how to breastfeed your child properly. And when she sees this, I don't know that she freaks out, but she hears a scream coming from the corridor, from the labyrinth, if you will. She goes out there, with what little light from her cell phone she has. She does eventually find Bill curled up, Keith. Well, Bill Skarsgård, Keith. She does eventually find him curled up on the basement floor. She thinks that he fell down there accidentally. So she's like, come on, let's get out of here. But then he tells her, we're not alone here. There's somebody down here. And obviously, she doesn't really want to hear it. She's just like, come on, let's go, let's go. And then finally he says, something bit me. And as soon as he says something bit me, we see this naked, very tall woman who's, I don't want to say mutated, but this woman looks like she's lived in a basement for her whole fucking life. And she's butt naked, like I said. So we've got just big old floppy tits flying all over the place. And we see her grab Keith by the head and just start slamming his head into the stone walls of the corridor, just absolutely crushing his head. And then bam, the scene just ends. And now we're in beautiful Malibu, California, driving in a convertible with Justin Long down the Pacific Coast Highway. And it like I said, it's just so jarring because you just saw an intense kill scene. And then it just goes to this beautiful, idyllic scene that just, like I said, it's jarring. So we're introduced to AJ. Justin Long is an actor who basically has just recently shot a pilot, and the pilot is about to be picked up by the network. But then AJ is accused of sexual assault by one of his co-stars. Apparently, during the filming of the pilot, he got a little bit too friendly with one of the co-stars, one of his female co-stars, who may have been a little young for him. And she is now accusing him of sexual assault, and publicly too. Like, she came out to the press. It's not like he heard this from a lawyer. I mean, he did at first hear this from a lawyer, but literally as soon as he arrives at the place that he's staying at in LA, it's all over the news. You know, the AJ, blah, you know, actor AJ, blah, 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 accused of sexual assault and everything else. And instantly AJ, you know, denies the whole thing, says, no, what? This has to be a misunderstanding. I don't understand what's going on. We don't get an explanation of what actually happened that night until later in the film, so keep that in mind. But yeah, he's basically playing the victim here. He wants to call the accuser and talk to her, and his lawyer is like adamant, do not do that. Do not in any way, shape, or form call her. Do not try to communicate with her in any way, shape, or form. She has officially, you know, submitted the paperwork to the court, and you just can't speak to her. Any lawyer will tell you that. You don't want to speak to the person that you're either suing or being sued by in court. So, and then basically the hammer falls after all of the accusations. He loses the pilot. The pilot actually doesn't even get picked up because of this accusation. So basically, AJ cost everyone on that show a job because of his stupidity. And first, he, you know, like I said, he loses his pilot, and then he realizes that he has to get legal fees, because not only is he being accused of sexual assault, he is also going to countersue the accuser for libel, of course, for lying. And, you know, when his agent, basically, not his agent, but his financial wealth manager, basically tells him, okay, well, if you need this much money for 2 different court cases that may not even go your way, you're going to go through this much of the money that you have saved up. And basically tells him you'll be broke in 4 months if you don't get another job. Because obviously no one's going to hire him at this point. He has been publicly accused. It's Johnny Depp all over again. Well, maybe not Johnny Depp. It's more like Armie Hammer than Johnny Depp, since Johnny Depp actually turned out to be fairly.
Well, I thought with the producer thing, I thought it was a direct rip on Harvey Weinstein.
Well, I mean, he's an actor, so I tend to think more like the Bill Burrs and the Weinstein is valid, don't get me wrong, but Weinstein was practically a kingpin with the shit that he did. So whereas AJ is just a dumb idiot who got a little overzealous with a girl. Well, at least that's what we think right now, that he got a little overzealous with this.
Well, the thing is, we don't know. I mean,
exactly.
that's,
At this point, we don't.
I think we purposely aren't supposed to know, because they play with the whole, oh, is he really a good guy and here's his redemption story? Or, and then we'll figure out, or we find out later, kind of more of his character.
Exactly. So like I said, first he realizes that he's going to be broke in a few months. Then his financial manager tells him, you should probably find someone new because I'm not renewing our contract. So now he doesn't have a financial manager. He doesn't have a job. He's going to be broke in 4 months because of the lawsuits. So as it turns out, he owns property in Detroit, Michigan, which actually turns out to be his hometown. He's actually from Detroit. Apparently, you know, maybe when he first got successful, he decided to buy some properties out there. And lo and behold, he is, of course, the owner of 476 Barbary Lane, which, by the way, I didn't actually mention the name of the street, which does tie in with the name of the movie. And I actually really like how it ties in. We'll get into it more when we get a little bit more reveals later on. So Justin Long basically decides, well, I can't afford to live in LA, so I'm going to go to Michigan. I'm going to try to sell off my properties so that I can get a little bit of money for my case and maybe keep one of them, you know, and to actually live in. When he calls his lawyer and tells him this, the lawyer absolutely freaks out. Dude, you're being accused of sexual assault. You can't leave the state. What is wrong with you? And, you know, Justin Long is like, well, wait a minute. Am I going to get arrested? And he's like, well, more than likely, dude. I mean, she publicly made the accusation. Yeah. If she convinces the DA, the district attorney, that she's telling the truth, they're going to put a warrant out for you. And if you're out of state, it's going to be a national warrant. And suddenly you're dealing with a whole, that's federal. That's a federal charge there. That's not even state. So you're kind of fucked there. But at this point, he's already in Detroit. He literally called his lawyer from the airport in Detroit, from his rental car, to let him know that he was going to be out of California. So there's that whole exchange. And then, of course, we see him drive up to his house, 476 Barbary Lane. Again, the neighborhood is just trashed. He doesn't seem to react too crazily, not like Tess did when she first saw the neighborhood in the daylight. So, maybe he's aware of, the condition of the neighborhood. But when he gets to the house, he realizes that there's an SUV parked in front of his house that he doesn't recognize. When he gets in the house, he sees that the beds are all messed up. There's luggage. There's like 2 people's worth of luggage in his house. One piece of luggage in the living room, 1 piece of luggage in the bedroom. And he basically calls his real estate agent and says, like, what's going on? Like, what happened here? Why is my house such a mess? The agent lets him know that we don't clean the houses after people check out. We clean the houses after people reserve it. So right before they get there, the house is cleaned up, which of course pisses, AJ off. And, because he's like, there's luggage here. It seems like there's people still living here. The agent tells him, no, according to our records, nobody should have been there for the last 2 weeks. The last reservation was 2 weeks ago. And he ends up just hanging up with her, kind of pissy. And then he just starts looking through all the bags, looking through the luggage. He ends up finding Tess's laptop. It's kind of a weird scene because he ends up opening the laptop, trying one password, and obviously it doesn't go through. And he gets pissed off and he just kind of throws the laptop on a piece of furniture across the room, which seems, kind of selfish, self-centered, but it does go with the character. It tracks with this character. The more we learn about this character, the more we're kind of realizing that he's maybe not the nice guy that he thinks he is. That night, he ends up going out with some friends, kind of a big reunion because he's been in LA for so long. And he's with one of his friends in the bar, and the friend asks him, dude, what happened that night? Like, really, what happened? Like, I believe you and I'm going to support you no matter what, but I would still really like to know what happened. And then that's when fucking AJ turns into a gaslighting piece of shit, where he's basically, well, I mean, it was consensual in the sense that when we started, she didn't want to. He even says I had to egg her on a little bit, or I had to prod her into it a little bit. But that once everything got hot and heavy, that she seemed like she was into it. And then the friend says, well, did she say no at any time? And he's like, well, yeah, she said no at the beginning. Which obviously in the eyes of the law, for those of you who don't know too, you young gentlemen who might be listening, if you're in an intimate situation with a woman, the instant she says no, you must stop or it is rape. That's it. It's that fucking simple. You don't have to penetrate her. You don't have to get any of her clothes off. If she says no and you continue with your, frontal attack, that's it. You're a rapist. It's over. So, once he tells this part of the story to the friend, you kind of see the friend's facial expression change, but he's not like me, because if it was me, I'd have told him flat out, dude, you fucking raped that girl, you idiot. But of course, this guy doesn't really want to start a big shit with his friend. So he's like, okay, yeah, I guess I can kind of see where the confusion is. He ends up getting home drunk that night. And what the fuck does he do? He calls his accuser on the phone. Of course, she doesn't answer. But he ends up leaving a drunk message where he's like, I didn't think anything was wrong. I thought we had a good time. If I did something that offended you or made you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. Just this absolute gaslighting douchebag, trying to make himself the victim. He ends up hanging up the phone. He intends to go to bed to just kind of, oh no, he does end up going to bed. He wakes up the next morning, pukes a couple of times, realizes that there's stuff in his bathroom, like there's still an electric toothbrush plugged in, still charging in his bathroom. There's toiletry bags, things like that. And then he sees that his basement door is open and it's propped open with a chair. And he's like, wait a minute, I didn't do that. I know I didn't do that. And he ends up walking down into the basement. And when he gets there, this is what's kind of weird about this character that really just piles on as to how much of a piece of shit this guy is. Once he realizes that there's a basement, like a secret underground set of tunnels in his house, he starts to look up real estate websites asking, can you add underground dwellings into the total footage of a house? Because obviously, like I said, he's trying to sell this house, and he's just trying to find any way to goat the system at all. And he literally grabs a tape measure and he goes downstairs and he fucking measures the room of death with the bed and the bucket and the camera. And then he measures the entire corridor. And then when he gets to the end of the corridor, he bumps into the secret door, realizes that it's a door. He opens it, whereas most fucking normal human beings would look down this staircase and just say, nope, no way. He smiles and he's like, oh yeah, more footage. Awesome. So he's going down the stairs with his tape measure. He's measuring all of everything down there. He ends up finding the same secret room with the nursing video, the breastfeeding video playing on the TV. Apparently, this is a 24-hour breastfeeding channel, or it's a videotape just on a loop. That's probably the more accurate answer.
See, I have less of an issue of him going down there because as the owner of the house,
yes, exactly.
he probably just thinks, oh, this is some abandoned shit from, a previous owner. Whereas when she went down there, she knows full well she's not the owner. So there's things about this house that could be going on that she doesn't know about. So like, I was trying to think if it was me, I probably would have been curious enough to go through that initial like secret garage wall door and then, walk down that first hallway. But once there was that stone staircase to like the depths of the fucking earth, I'm like, I'm not going down there, at least not by myself.
Yeah, that's the point of it's. Yeah, that's the no point for me.
Yeah, exactly. So, and in Tess's defense, she didn't go down those stairs voluntarily. She went down there because she heard Keith screaming. But still, just the mere fact that she didn't leave the house when she first found the kill room or whatever you want to call that room, that just bothered me because she seemed like she was such a like on the ball kind of girl. Like she does have a sense of self-preservation because when she's talking to Bill Skarsgård's character earlier in the film, they even get to the point in the conversation where Bill is like, well, if you would have gotten here first and I came knocking on the door saying that the house was double booked, would you have let me in? And she's like, fuck no. There's no way I would have let you into this house had you gotten here second. So it's the type of thing where it's lucky that Keith got there first because they were able to share the place because, Tess was the one who got there second.
I feel like they do a lot of like playing with character arcs or fake arcs or would-be arcs or just pretend redemption story. Like they set the viewers up a lot in this movie where you think they're trying to go a certain way with the character and they don't, because that's the other thing I was thinking of, like, oh, is she does she feel like more, not obligation, but kind of like she should go help because the whole time she thought that he was like creepy and out to get her, and then finally she like let down her defenses and like, okay, he's a decent guy. So then when she ends up hearing him in some type of trouble or peril, it kind of motivates her like, well, after everything I previously thought, maybe I'll go see if he needs some type of help. So I thought maybe that's where they were trying to go with it. And then and then they almost repeat the same thing with Justin Long's character, where we're introduced to his character thinking he's already a would-be rapist. So it's like, are they trying to almost do the fake out redemption with him? Because we already had it with her where she kind of switched her opinion on Skarsgård. So with Justin Long, it's like, oh, are they trying to make us, set us up falsely to think, oh, he's really a good guy that got caught up in something not on the level, but it goes in a different direction.
Yeah, very obviously. Yeah. So, like I said, while AJ is measuring the basement, he does end up finding that secret room. He ends up going even farther into the catacombs, still measuring. By the way, I don't know about you guys, but at the first showing that I went to see, the audience was dying during this scene. Like you'd have thought they were watching Spaceballs or something. Like they were laughing really. And I'm thinking, okay, it's mildly funny, but literally every time he would pull out the tape measure and measure yet another hall in the catacombs, it was just uproarious laughter. I don't know what the hell was so funny about it, other than the fact that he's probably about to die and he's worried about the value of his home. I
The
guess
only thing the only thing I can think of is because because we already went through that with the initial act of the movie, that like now you have this goofy ass dude out down there tape measuring. People assume, okay, he's gonna get it, so there's like that tension, like almost breaking the tension with laughter, I guess.
Exactly. Yep. So, like I said, AJ continues down the catacombs, still measuring. Then eventually he does run into our titular. In the credits, she's called the mother, and I'll get into why she's called the mother here in a little bit. But it's right back to the this creature, this female superhuman of some kind, obviously humanoid, but mutated in some way, potentially inbred. Anyway, um, they do end up having like she does end up catching up to him, and he ends up falling into a trap. Apparently she's got traps like pitfalls throughout the catacombs that are pretty well hidden because the catacombs aren't lit. It's all dark. So whatever light you bring with you is the only light you're going to have down there, be it a flashlight, a cell phone, whatever the case may be. So AJ ends up getting chased by the mother and falls into this pitfall. And then we see the lid get shut, like a metal cage door basically gets shut behind him. And he's like, oh shit, I'm trapped. And then just when he starts to like verbally freak out. Like, he starts like not quite yelling, but like I said, just kind of a minor verbal freak out. Out comes Tess from the shadows. Yes, Tess is still alive somehow. And she has also been captured by this creature running around the catacombs. But she's been there already for 2 weeks. So she's kind of savvy to how this thing works. And basically, what she says to AJ is that she just wants children. She wants us to be her babies. As long as you do whatever you want or whatever she wants you to do, and you don't freak out, like you don't start yelling or try to run away or anything like that, she won't hurt you. She will treat you like you're one of her children, and basically take care of you. And then at that moment, what we see the arm of the creature going down into the tank with a baby bottle in its hand. A decrepit, nasty ass looking baby bottle with like hairs all over the nipple, and whatever's inside of the bottle does not look like pure milk. It looks like there might be other shit in there. But basically she's sticking the bottle down there, trying to get Justin Long to drink, literally to take a couple of sips. Obviously, he just got there. He's freaked out. He refuses to drink from the bottle. Tess is basically pleading with him, just drink, just take a couple of drinks. She's going to kill you. And he just absolutely refuses. Then the mother, or the creature, I should say, puts the bottle closer to Tess, and we see Tess actually suck from the bottle a little bit, actually take like a couple of squeezes from the nipple to get, God, I hope breast milk. But the thing is, the breast milk from this thing, I don't think would be drinkable, but whatever. So, because it's the only place I could figure she's getting milk. This woman doesn't look like someone who's going to the store at night, so. And after Tess takes a couple of sips from the bottle, the creature then tries to get AJ again to sip from the bottle. Again, he refuses. So she gets all pissed off. She opens the lid of the cage, jumps down like a fucking predator, grabs AJ by the leg, and literally climbs out of the of the pit. Pretty impressive, actually. So obviously there's more to this woman than just, being trapped in this basement, or if she's even trapped or whatever the case may be. We do get more backstory later. After she pulls AJ out of the pit, Tess is able to get out of the pit herself, And she basically starts to run away. She starts to think, well, shit, maybe I should help this guy out, but she can't. She decides, no, I'm gonna leave. But when she finally gets back into the basement part of the house, the fucking door closed behind her again because AJ moved the chair because he didn't know why the chair was there to begin with. But this time, she's so adamant about getting out of the basement that she literally just smashes the glass of that little window that we mentioned earlier with her bare hands. She's literally just smashing the shit out of the glass. She ends up just barely getting out of the house to the point where she literally turns around and there's the creature at the window looking out at her, but she won't come out. So, Tess obviously thinks she's safe for a little while. She ends up running into the homeless guy again. You remember the homeless guy from earlier in the film? She ends up running into him again, and this is where we find out he wasn't attacking her in that the first scene where we saw him. He was trying to warn her not to go in that house because he knew what was in there already. Yes, we have a local who basically stays out of everybody's business, and this is the scene where he explains to Tess that she does come out at night. You're not safe in this neighborhood at night. She will come out. She will hunt you down. She'll smell you out and she'll bring you back to the house, and she'll more than likely kill you because you're no longer acting like her child, like her baby. So blah, blah, blah. She starts to feel bad for I'm sorry. The homeless guy basically tells Tess, oh, she's been living down there for 40 years. She's never going to leave. And then at this point, this is where we get our flashback. The camera pans away from the homeless guy to the house in modern time, and then it basically fades into the idyllic, version of the neighborhood from, I can only assume, the 70s, even though we already talked about some discrepancies in this scene. But what we see is Richard Brake playing a character named Frank, walking out of the same house, 476 Barbary Lane, and goes into his car. Obviously, there's neighbors, there's people walking the dogs, there are people mowing their lawns. Like, it's a fully active neighborhood. Of course, everyone is white. I won't get into that. But, he's talking to one of his neighbors. The neighbor lets him know, oh, I've decided to sell the house. It seems like the neighborhood's kind of going to shit. And I think a lot of us are, thinking about moving. Are you thinking about selling the house too? And basically he just says it with one line, I ain't going nowhere. And then we see him get into his car, go to the store that I mentioned earlier, and he's buying like plastic sheets, like, rolls of plastic sheets. What else is he buying? Diapers, baby formula. Like he's buying some conspicuous items, especially for a single guy just kind of walking around there by himself, not wearing a wedding ring. He's definitely buying some unusual items. What we see then is he ends up following one of the women who walks out of the store after him. He ends up driving and following her home. When she gets home, he parks in like a side alley, and then he puts on a DWP jumpsuit, Department of Water and Power, one of those gray jumpsuits that they all wear. And he knocks on the woman's door, and obviously we think, we're about to get a pretty fucking awesome violent scene. But what we get is he knocks on the door. He tells her, ma'am, there have been some power outages in the neighborhood. We'd like to check your circuits if we can, blah, 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 blah. He ends up going into the house, going into her bathroom, and unlocking the bathroom window. That's all he does. He just unlocks, it's got one of those old traditional like sliding locks. He unlocks the bathroom window, and then he just leaves without incident. He just says, oh, thank you, ma'am. It looks like everything's all right from what I can tell. And that's pretty much the end of the flashback. And I like that because, like I said, it just gives you little breadcrumbs of information to kind of fill in the blanks of the history of the house. We don't see Frank kill anyone. We don't see him kidnap anyone. We don't see him do anything violent at all. But he's such a menacing character. He's got this scowl on his face the entire scene. He doesn't like chit chat. Obviously, he only has a few lines in the whole scene, a couple to the woman, and then, like I said, one to the neighbor. And that's it. That's our whole flashback. We are back to modern day. The sun is coming down, and the woman Tess didn't go with the homeless guy because the homeless guy claims to have a safe area where the woman in the house will never get to. And then that's when we get more of an explanation. Oh, no, not yet. I'm sorry. She basically decides to go back into the house since it's still daylight. She's not going to go into the basement. She basically breaks the front window of the house just to get her keys. That's it. She gets her keys. She gets into her truck. And literally, I'm happy. I'm thinking, yay, she's going to get out. She finally came to her senses. But what ends up happening is as she's pulling out, the creature, the female creature in the basement, just smashes through the front door, literally knocks the fucking whole front door off the hinges and everything. And she's just out in the open, butt naked, just screaming and yelling at Tess. Instead of driving away, Tess, does the more vengeful thing and puts the car in gear and basically pins the female creature against the house. We see the creature kind of struggle a little bit, but then we see kind of the life leave her eyes close, and then she's motionless on the hood of the car. Tess, the smart girl that she is, does not move the car. She leaves the car right there and goes back into the house to see if she can find Justin Long. Now, while all this was happening outside, Justin Long's character AJ is still, traversing the catacombs, and he ends up he's at one point he's being chased by the creature, and then he gets to a door and he just stands by the door and he sees the creature start to come towards him, but then she kind of looks behind him and sees the door and she leaves. She ends up like kind of, scuttling away, like she's scared of something in that room. Justin, of course, goes into the room thinking that, oh, well, maybe it's safe in here because, and earlier in the conversation with Tess and the homeless guy did make a cryptic statement that there's more dangerous stuff in that house than that woman. And then, like I said, then we go to the scene with Justin in the basement being chased by her. He gets to the door. She leaves him alone. He goes into the room. And what do we find? Octogenarian Richard Brake lying in the bed, basically motionless. Like he literally looks like he's on death's door. And and AJ obviously thinks that maybe this guy is also a prisoner of the creature, of the female. So he gives him water. Richard Brake at this point, Frank, can't talk. Like I said, he's literally on the brink of death. He points towards the end table, like the little bedside end table. But Justin Long's character, AJ, doesn't understand what he wants. So he literally picks up the entire end table and brings it over to him. And then while Richard Brake opens the top drawer and is searching around for something, AJ notices all of these videotapes with different women's names on them. And some of the tapes don't even have names. Some of them will say like girl from the mall or girl from the bowling alley, girl from the supermarket. He ends up putting one of the tapes in, and we don't actually see what's played on the tape, but we do hear the audio. We hear a woman screaming. We hear someone beating her, someone doing awful things to her. At this point, AJ turns around towards, the decrepit Frank in the bed, starts to call him a monster, says, what the fuck is wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, this is Justin Long, new rapist, telling this man what the fuck is wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. Finally, Frank finds what he was looking for in the drawer, and it's a revolver. It's a handgun. At first, he points it at AJ, and we all think, oh, he's just going to kill AJ because he's annoying him. But what he ends up doing is he takes the gun away from pointed at AJ and puts it up to his own head and just pulls the trigger unceremoniously, just takes himself out right in front of AJ, which of course freaks him out and makes him want to run away, run out of the room. I will give AJ credit because he does grab the gun before he leaves. Thankfully, he's not a weapon dropper. He is a dumbass when it comes to weapons, though, because multiple times before this scene, we see him with like a knife or something. And if something scares him, he freaks out and he drops the fucking weapon, which is kind of, he's not a weapon dropper from ignorance. He's a weapon dropper from fear. So I don't know if that's any more forgivable or not, but whatever. But like I said, he's smart enough to take the gun. and he takes the gun and he's trying to find his way out of the catacombs. At the exact same time, Tess, like I said, has pinned the creature up against the house, and she goes into the house to try to find AJ, figuring, well, now that the creature is gone, I can get in there safely and get him out of there. What ends up happening is almost exactly what you fucking expect. There's a misunderstanding as Tess turns the corner to try to find AJ. AJ doesn't know who it is, and he pulls the trigger, shooting Tess in the midsection. Yeah. So again, I'm screaming at Tess for even going back into that house, and then she ends up getting shot for her trouble. And her punishment isn't over yet. We'll get to more of no good deed goes unpunished. This movie is a beautiful example of that statement. No good deed goes unpunished. So she's helping AJ out of the house. When they get out of the house, they realize that the woman is gone. The car is still there, pinned up against the house, but the woman is completely gone. Her car is obviously trashed because she, slammed it into the side of the house. AJ's car is still there, but the keys are in the house, and they don't want to go back in to get them with the woman still on the loose. If the woman, if her dead body was still there on the car, maybe they would have gone back in, but they don't. They end up going to the water tower where the homeless guy told Tess was a safe area. Basically, they both go to the water tower, and then this is when we get a little bit more background on the house. This is where the homeless guy, starts talking about Frank and talking about the fact that he kidnapped and tortured and raped and murdered just multiple dozens of women, and that he literally, his whole intention with these women was to have a baby. Very much like our blind antagonist in Don't Breathe. He just wanted to have a child. But then the homeless guy basically says he had babies with all these women that he kidnapped, and then he had babies with the babies, which was such a gross line. And now we're kind of starting to understand why this woman is in the basement. As it turns out, she is one of the love children of, one of these incestuous love children from Frank's, escapades in the past, which explains why she's mutated, why she looks like she belongs in Wrong Turn, stuff like that. And literally at the exact moment where Tess asks the homeless guy, "Are you sure we're safe in here? Like, she won't come in here?" And he's like, "Nah, I've been living here for 15 years and she's never bothered me." The problem is that she never bothered you because she didn't have a reason to, buddy. Now she has a reason to. And at that moment, literally at the exact moment where he says, "Nah, she never bothers me," boom, she comes crashing through the wall. Not a door or a window, literally the fucking wall. She comes crashing through the wall. She grabs the homeless guy, rips his goddamn arm out, and then beats him to death with it. I know it's a silly, over the top, almost cliche kill, but my friends, I fucking love it every time I see it. Rip off someone's appendage and beat them with it, and I will applaud every fucking time. And this one was pretty epic because, you could definitely tell that she was doing some damage, because the homeless guy didn't die from the arm rip. He was still alive. And she's just beating him unmercifully with his arm, crushing his skull, just absolutely destroying him. So while she's doing that, AJ and Tess are able to get out of the water tower. Don't forget, Tess has a bullet wound in her midsection, so she's not exactly able to run very fast. At this point, AJ turns into a completely selfish douchebag, which he already was anyway, but now he's not even trying to hide it. He's literally running well in front of Tess, and Tess is like, wait, I can't run that fast, I can't catch up with you. He turns around and he goes something along the lines of, "I don't care, she'll catch you first and it'll give me a chance to get away." He literally says this out loud to Tess, like, flat out, "I don't care, I'm gonna worry about my own self-worth right now, or self-being," whatever the case is. They end up getting chased by the woman up to the water tower. All the way up. They end up climbing all the way up to the water tower. They're up there. There's no guardrail around there. It's literally just a flat surface with no guardrail other than the staircase going down. And you literally see you see the gears start to turn in his head. And then he makes another statement about He says, after I do what I'm going to do, make sure you keep her busy so that I can get away. He actually fucking says that to her. Like she's going to agree with him in any way, shape, or form. But what ends up happening is the mother ends up climbing up the stairs as well. And when she gets up to the top, AJ, like the selfish piece of fucking garbage that he is, literally grabs Tess by the hair and throws her over the edge of the water tower. Hoping that the creature would, I guess, pay more attention to Tess while he got away. The creature, I gotta say, the creature is actually a fairly loving creature when she thinks you're her child, because she leaps off the water tower after Tess, somehow is able to catch up to Tess and land on the ground first, saving Tess. So when AJ looks over the edge of the water tower, he sees both of their lifeless bodies on the ground, and he sees a big blood stain coming from the head of the creature, the mother. He ends up walking down the stairs, walking down the stairs of the water tower. He still has the gun in his hand, mind you. I'm yelling at him, double tap, dude, fucking double tap. It doesn't matter that they're dead. Put one in her fucking brain right now while you have a chance. And it looks like he's about to, like he lifts up the gun, but then Tess starts coughing. That's when he realizes, oh shit, Tess survived. And again, like the absolute piece of shit that he is, he starts apologizing. I'm so sorry I had to do that. I thought it was the only way I would get out of this alive. Please don't hate me. He fucking actually says that. He just tried to murder this woman. And he literally says, don't hate me. I'm not a bad guy. I just do bad things. Oh my fucking God. I love this. For whatever it's worth, Justin Long plays an awesome piece of shit. I will give him that. I've seen him play a piece of shit in multiple movies, Tusk, stuff like that. He always does a great job playing a piece of garbage. So, and this movie's no exception. So like I said, he's apologizing to Tess, trying to help her up off the ground so that they can make their escape. And instantly the mother wakes up, head wound and all, still just oozing blood onto the ground. She gets up and she grabs Justin Long by the head. She buries her thumbs into his eye sockets, and we see all that glorious ocular fluid coming out of the sockets of his eyes. And then she fucking splits his head like a butterfly shrimp. Now, this is one of the kills that I kind of wish the camera was at the front of the character. We see it from behind. We see it from behind Justin Long's character, behind AJ's head, but we very clearly see her split his head open. She butterfly shrimped his head. That was pretty satisfying, I will say. Obviously, I try not to fall into that trap of getting gratification from shitty characters dying in movies, but this guy kind of deserved to die anyway, so definitely no problem there. And then the mother kind of turns her attention to Tess, and she's still not mad at Tess. She's trying to like mouth out the words baby. She keeps going bebe, bebe over and over again to Tess. And Tess now has the gun that AJ took from Frank. As the mother bends over to pick up Tess to take her back home, Tess literally out loud says, I can't go back to that house, puts the gun right up to the monster's head, pulls the fucking trigger. And my friends, when I say the movie ended that instant, I'm not fucking kidding. The bullet goes off, boom, closing credits. I couldn't get it. Was so jarring. We do get a cool scene during the credits of Tess kind of walking out. The sun has risen. It's the next morning, and she's just kind of walking. She ends up finding a service station. The credits are rolling during all of this, and she gets to the service station. She's able to get use of the telephone, and then the movie fades out and goes to the remainder of the credits. And that's it, folks. That is Barbarian 2022. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention during the walkthrough is how I like the name of this movie. This movie obviously is called Barbarian. And what I like about it is that when the homeless guy says, oh, she was born in that house, she's been here for over 40 years, it makes sense that somebody who was born on Barbary Lane is considered a barbarian, because that would be the technical term, actually. If you came from a city called Barbary, you'd be called a barbarian. So it's not. It's like a dual use with the term, you know, because the woman actually is a fucking badass. You know, she's super strong, super fast, you know, big. She's taller than almost everybody in the movie. She's got these gnarly long nails that are very much like claws. Like they almost look like she sharpened them into claws, but you know, whatever. So, you know, creature design was cool. I liked the way the mother looked. I'm assuming that they call her the mother in the credits because she was, you know, one of the generations that, you know, she was begot by Frank, but then Frank went and had a child with her. So now she becomes, quote unquote, the mother. One of the things that I don't know if they're trying to save up for a sequel, but even though the homeless guy talks about how Frank would rape these women, have babies with them, and then have babies with the babies, you would expect that there would be more creatures in this movie. But we only get the one. So did she just kill everybody else that was trapped in the catacombs with her? Or is she just the only lucky one who survived, you know, an inbred, you know, birth, whatever? I don't know. They don't get into it in the movie. Obviously, like I said, Frank commits suicide, so that's the end of any exposition we're going to get out of him. But so yeah, so like I said, I like the dichotomy of the title of Barbarian being both a badass warrior and someone from Barbary. I do talking about this makes me kind of enjoy the movie more because there is a lot of fun to be had in this movie. There's a lot of frustrating elements that you have to deal with, but it's still overall a very fun movie. Like I said, I kind of put this on a par with Malignant in the sense that on my first watch, I was a little jarred with some of the transitions and how the story kind of changed pacing and everything else. But on second watch, I kind of warmed up to it knowing what was coming. Same thing with this movie. When I watched it the second time, I was a little bit more forgiving of the stupidity of some of the characters in this movie. You know, AJ's character, and we completely skipped the cop scene that Mike was talking about earlier. That's right, shit. Basically, after Tess escapes the house the first time, when she smashes through the basement window, she is able to get a couple of police officers to come. You know, they're patrolling the neighborhood and they see her, and she starts to tell her story that she's been held captive for 2 weeks in that house right there. The cops obviously don't believe her. They're like, no one lives in that house, man, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I know I rented it as an Airbnb, but there's something in the basement and it killed the other guy, blah, blah, blah. You know, she's frantic and trying to explain to it. The cops are just looking at her like, you know, she's absolutely insane. And then the black cop, the one who's driving, basically looks her up and down and just kind of decides not to help her. Now, I understand if he looked at her and thought that she was some kind of drug addict or something. Admittedly, she was dirty because she had been in that basement for the last 2 weeks. But my friends, Georgina Campbell is a beautiful woman. So you've got a beautiful woman who just happens to be a little dirty. And there's no way she's a crackhead because she has all her fucking teeth and they're pearl white. That's the easiest way to tell if someone is a crackhead, a meth head. Look at their fucking teeth. No crackhead or meth head in the world is going to have beautifully aligned teeth that are pearly white. It's just, so that's why this scene is so fucking frustrating, because even a half retarded cop could have looked at this woman and know she's not a crackhead. There's very obviously, there's despair in her eyes. But
the other dead giveaway is two brand new looking cars sitting in front of the house. All she has to do is say, "Hey, this is my car. Run the plates." It'll come up with my name and all my belongings are inside the house, and I can't get in the house. Like that to me, the whole cop stuff was even way more stupid than her being curious enough to go down in the basement, because at least that's like a trope that's in like a lot of horror movies. But the whole thing with the cops, and I'm like, she has plenty more ammo there to like at her disposal to say, hey, you know, run the plates on this car. And like, what are these brand new? Well, maybe they might not be brand new, but they're good condition cars.
Fairly new.
Two of them doing this in this neighborhood like this, just kind of randomly sitting here, and you would think the cops would even kind of notice that, like, this rundown, you know, it's not even like a bad neighborhood. It's like pretty much in an uninhabited neighborhood. That's how rundown it is. And there happens to be this one house with these two cars there. You would think the cops might even get out and like do a little more exploring, but
I mean, one of them gets out of the car and knocks on the door like an idiot. He just knocks on the door. Obviously, there's no answer. She's trying to plead with them to just break the door down. The cop is like, I'm not going to vandalize someone's house. And then he even looks at her and says, I should arrest you because you smashed that window. Because, you know, she tells the cop I had to smash the basement window to get out. And I had, you know, and the cop is basically it almost seems like he's implying that he's going to arrest her for vandalism. So yeah, this entire fucking scene, I already have a problem with horror movie cops, mainly because of incompetence, but this isn't incompetence. This is fucking disdain. This is sheer just hate, not caring about the community. Now, like I said, folks, this is Detroit. This is the murder capital of the country. I understand that cops in Detroit are going to get jaded, but there was no reason for them to treat this situation like this. To not even call in her name, or like Mike said, the plates, to even go into the house through the broken window. It's like they could have gone in through the broken window, not done any more damage to the house, and still, you know, would have been able to find, you know, some corroborating evidence to what she's telling them. So yeah, easily the most frustrating scene in the movie. I really, really wish it wasn't even in here. I just eliminate the entire fucking scene. It's not like it adds anything. It's not like we see the cops later. We don't. We never see the cops again. It's literally a throwaway scene just to add frustration to the viewer, and I don't appreciate that. So
yeah, if anything, they could have had the cops help her get in there, and then somehow they get trapped in there, and then the creature comes and kills the cops or something like that. I mean,
there you go.
at least yeah, I mean, at least it shows that like the cops are making a good faith effort to help. Because to me, the way the cops are portrayed in this is they just had no interest from the get go in either listening to her or even helping her if she was in some kind of trouble. And other than her clothes being kind of like disheveled, she doesn't, you know, display. It's not like she's telling like wild tale versions of this, you know, where she's saying like, "Oh, fairies in the house have trapped me." She doesn't sound like a crackhead.
Oh. I mean, considering she's been trapped for 2 weeks, I thought she relayed her information rather well. She was frantic, yes, but considering how frantic she could have been, you know, I thought she did a good job explaining what happened, explaining to the cops what's what. I mean, she's even yelling at the cops, there's still a guy in there. He's still in the house. He could be getting killed right now, and you guys aren't doing anything. Of course, they look at her, you know, like she's insane. They end up getting a call about shots fired in some other part of the city, and they end up just leaving her right there in front of the goddamn house. This is when she goes back into the house, gets the keys to her car, tries to drive away, and then we have that whole interaction with the mother and pinning her to the house and everything. But man, this fucking scene. If I was a Detroit cop, I would be mad at this movie. I legitimately would be fucking mad. Way more mad than any fireman who saw Halloween Kills. But yeah, I think that's about all I got for this one. I do still recommend it. It has its problems. There are frustrating elements to it. I think we kind of went over all of them. Obviously, if you're still with us, I would imagine you've already seen the movie or you don't have any interest in seeing the movie, but I would still highly recommend it. Even if you don't want to go to theaters to see it, which I would recommend seeing this in theaters, supporting a movie like this is fairly important in our genre. It is, like I said, it's still somewhat of an original story. It's not the most original story I've ever seen. You know, we've seen monsters in the basement type movies before plenty of times, a lot of them in the 80s actually. But
I think the movie's constructed in a unique way, but it's a lot of familiar elements from other movies that are kind of, you know, built to make this one.
Exactly. So yeah.
Kind of like Malignant. I mean, the way you would say Malignant is like a take on Basket Case at the end, but it still managed to make it kind of in a newish way, I guess.
Or Evil Dead Trap, but that's okay. I do see the Basket Case resemblance as well. Got to see Evil Dead Trap, man. Evil Dead Trap is basically Malignant in what? Yeah.
Japan.
Japan. That's a Japanese movie. So yeah, it's Malignant in Japan. And I do recommend it. It's a great movie.
I do too.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I think I'm all set on Barbarian. A good movie with some flaws, but still very watchable. And you might, like I said, if you're forgiving of stupid characters, then you might have a really good time with this one. So go check it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with them.
Yep. I had fun with it. Go see it. And, you know, if you
Well, I will say I do kind of recommend maybe waiting for the video because I think maybe the picture quality might improve. Because I think maybe the transfer would probably be improved and you can actually see what's going on a little bit more often.
Yeah, if they put out a 4K of this and you have like a really nice big 4K TV, it might look a little bit better in the house. Yeah, because it's not going to be 4K in the theaters, obviously.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap this up. So let's find out where else we can hear everyone. Venom, you're up first.
All right. So for me, we just released our latest episode of No More Room in Hell Presents Creature Comforts. Now, this is not episode 12. Unfortunately, Derek wasn't able to join us because of a family emergency. So Don and I decided to do a Fantasia special where we looked at 3 films that screened at the recent Fantasia in June, I believe?
Maybe June, July. I can't
somewhere
remember.
in that
It's been a
range.
while.
Yeah.
It's been a while, yeah.
So basically, we look at 3 creature features that were released, all 3 of them kind of being kaiju movies. 2 of them are solidly kaiju. One of them has kaiju in the title, but it's not exactly a kaiju film. So
Yeah.
that episode just dropped today, so check that out. Unfortunately, it is labeled as episode 12, but it's technically a Fantasia bonus episode since Derek wasn't able to join us. But, take it as you will. That's available today on darkdiscussions.com. The main show, No More Room in Hell. Unfortunately, we had another cancellation this weekend, and hopefully this coming weekend we'll get together to look at my picks, which are 1960s Eyes Without a Face and 2015's Goodnight Mommy. I think it's 2015. It's somewhere in that range. So that'll hopefully, fingers crossed, get recorded this week and be available sometime next week. And I think that's all I have, unfortunately. Not a whole lot else going on in Venom Land right now.
All right. How about you, Don?
Creature Comforts bonus episode. That is available today because that was just released a few hours before we recorded this, so it's definitely out. Latest episode of the Horror Countdown. I had a few filmmaker friends of mine on to look at H.P. Lovecraft adaptations. So yeah, that was a really fun time. And the last one is the guest spot on the Night Club podcast, where we went ahead and did a special Sharknado look, which was a lot of fun with that. So yeah, like I've been saying,
all the fun movies.
yeah, yeah. Night Club is 2 words, so it's Night Club. Look for it pretty much everywhere. It's the latest episode, so yeah, go ahead and check that one out. Other than that, yeah, I don't have much else coming. I think, Venom, you and I are just waiting around for a special guest spot to appear because I think we're both included in a special seasonal challenge.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah, but I think we're still waiting around for any announcements on that. So, yeah, for now, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. And as far as I go, I don't think I have anything new. So
you'll have something new by the end of the week. I just got to finish editing
it. All right, then. Well, something to come.
There you go. Something we can talk about next week.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's hitting theaters this?
Pearl.
That's right.
Friday the 16th. Yes, opening this weekend. The prequel to X. I assume everyone who loved X is going to run out and see Pearl this weekend. And we will be no different. We'll be here talking about it on the next episode.
Yeah.
I got to ask, is this the first time a prequel has ever actually been released the same year as the movie it's a prequel to?
I thought about that the other day as well. Like I was surprised. Like I didn't realize that this thing was coming out before we saw X. Once we saw that post-credit scene in X, we realized that we're getting a prequel, but I'm at a loss for other examples. I do have examples of sequels that came out in the same year, but that's only because they shot them at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because like Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, or Oh, there's a few I know from like filmmaker friends of mine that shot one movie and split them up, or I mean like making the most famous example, Puppet Master 4 and 5.
Huh, yeah.
Either way, though, I'm
Yeah.
mildly excited for this one. Again, it's Ty West, and I do love me some Ty West, even though I was probably the lowest on X when we reviewed it. I still did enjoy it a lot, but we'll see. I mean, I haven't watched a trailer, so I have no idea. I mean, obviously, we already saw X, so we kind of know what we're getting. Obviously, I know nothing about the plot or story at all since I haven't watched the trailer, but I'm still kind of looking forward to it. So, we'll see. Fingers crossed.
I just hope it's fun with good kills. I mean, that's the type of movie they're setting it up to be. So, to me, that's where it has to deliver. I mean, it can totally like throw me for a loop and be good for other reasons, but I'm like, the way they're selling it is Crazy Pearl going on a killing rampage. So let's see it.
There we go.
All right, cool. Well, with that said, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Fresh Cuts. We will catch you in a week's time to talk about Pearl. So until then, thanks everyone for listening. Let's say bye to the listeners.
Later.
Stay out of the fucking basement.
Yeah, and the stairs that lead to an even deeper basement.
If you find a stairway to hell in your house, just fucking leave. Sell the house, leave.
Or just assume hell's down there and
Yeah,
you know what you're getting yourself into.
You know there's nothing good down there. It's not like you're gonna go down there and find like a vault full of gold bricks. So
yeah, they don't build Disneyland in the catacombs. So all right, peace.